Now our girl's nice and pretty again. I want to give you a wrap up on the wrap. Did a lot of research on this. It's got some really great benefits. Number one is, of course, cost. We got some bids for all grip painting. The cheapest quote we got was for $18,000 from St. Augustine Marine Center, and that did not include de-rigging and re-rigging the boat. The most expensive quote we got was from Thunderbolt Marine, and they wanted $48,000 again just to paint the side of the boat. The cost for a boat wrap like this on a 46-foot boat is about $7,000 to $8,000. Now, Boat Wraps gave us a little bit of a break. Burl's working with us, and we're making a video about this, but about $7,000 or $8,000 to wrap a boat the size of Clarity. The next benefit is the time it takes. There's a boat next to us, 4 months to get a paint job done, and while the work is immaculate, 4 months on the hard while we live on Clarity is just not practical. Burl and his team got this entire boat wrapped with all the pinstriping in 2.5 days. The solid color was on in about a day and a half, and then they did a bunch of detail work. And from more than about 5 or 6 feet away, you can't tell that it's not painted. It is really, really nice work. Another benefit of the vinyl wrap is that it's removable. It will degrade over time. There's a 1-year warranty from 3M for marine use, and we're being told that it's going to last somewhere between 7 and 8 years, and then it's going to get a little bit of sun damage, some UV cracking. But when you do eventually remove that vinyl wrap, the gel coat underneath is pristine. A lot of very high-end boats are being wrapped just simply as a protectant. Another benefit is there is no waxing involved. Gel coat has to be waxed. You've got to keep some sort of protectant on it, otherwise it oxidizes and the colors fade. To wax a boat like Clarity, a very inexpensive job is about $1,500, and spending $3,000 on a very high-end wax job is certainly not out of the question. That has to be done at least once a year, and new boat owners typically wax their boat twice a year. How about the downsides to a vinyl wrap? Well, it is not as hard as paint, certainly. So it's not going to stand up to gouges or scratches from the dock or anything like that, like paint or gel coat will. Repairing it's very easy with little patches, but the finish is not going to last if you abuse it. You also have to use fender covers. Megan made some cool little fender covers just out of sweatpants and sweatshirt material. Of course, she's a wonder with the sewing machine, but she made custom fender covers. So when we are at a dock, we've got a little added protection for the vinyl. All right, let's talk process. Now, of course, I do my research just like you on YouTube, and I watched a lot of boats get vinyl wraps. And for about a millisecond, I thought, you know, that looks easy enough. I bet you I could try it. But after watching Burl and his team do their work here on the boat, there is no question this is not a DIY process. Maybe with a small boat, with small areas of material, but these sheets are 5+ feet wide and 75 feet long, and you can't abuse it when you're putting it on. So their process is like this. First of all, they went through and found little scratches that somebody made to the boat, just little itty bitty scratches.
Do you remember making these scratches in your boat?
Oh, it was a previous owner. What are you talking about? And they filled them in because that vinyl is going to hug the surface completely.
So what's the purpose of this filler?
Just to, when we do lay the vinyl is 2.5 mil thick, and it's going to just go right inside of this crack.
So they filled those in and sanded them flat, Then they went around and cleaned the boat very thoroughly to get rid of any oxidation, any residual wax, any sort of oil that might have been on the surfaces. After the boat was clean, they stretched out their film. The 3M product is called 1080 vinyl film. It's got little itty bitty air channels in the adhesive. So as they're pulling that vinyl taut and squeegeeing out the air, it can escape so you don't get air bubbles in it. So they can stretch it, they can pull it, they can heat it, and it forms and conforms to every little curve on the boat. So the finish is very much like paint. After that, they've got everything squeegeed down, then it's time for the accents. They put down separate layers of vinyl film, and this is where things get really, really interesting.
What is this stuff?
It's one of the coolest little things that they've invented for wrappers in a long time. Instead of taking a knife and cutting on your boat or car or airplane or whatever, there's a filament inside this that allows us to pull it, and then you're cutting the vinyl from the back through the front.
The final step in this process was to add clear protectant film in the high use areas. And this includes around the cleats and around our transoms where the dinghy sometimes might brush up against the hull. This just adds another layer of protection so that that vinyl film will stay nice and pristine. And that, my friends, is all there is to it. They were done in 2.5 days, and we couldn't be happier. Burl and his team travel all over the Caribbean, to Hawaii, up into New England. I just can't recommend them highly enough. Very, very skilled. The finishes are perfect, and they're really, really fast. And Burl, by the way, is a really easy guy to work with. He can work with designers to put graphics on the boat. So if you're interested in a vinyl wrap, I do highly recommend that you contact boatwraps.com and Burl, and they'll set you up. Very fair dealers. To tell the story for why we chose to do a vinyl wrap, we really got to go back in time and tell you why we're changing the color and look of Clarity at all. And we have to go back 3 years to when we bought the boat out of charter from moorings and took it to St. Martin down in the Caribbean. Now, the boat had dock dings from charter guests not quite making it to the slip perfectly. There was no significant damage to the hull. These were all just little gel coat scratches, didn't even go down into the fiberglass. Get to St. Martin, and I ask, who is the gel coat doctor? Who's the guy that can make these scratches disappear? And I was recommended a gentleman. We talked on the phone, we set a time for him to show up, and he was late. About an hour and a half late. And when he showed up, he had a beer in his hand. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it was 10 in the morning. So I made a judgment call and said, no man, I don't think so. There were a couple other boatyard workers who were standing by, the younger island guys, and they said, hey man, you need some gel coat work? And I said, yeah. So we made a deal for them to take care of all the gel coat scratches. What followed was almost 2 weeks of prep on the boat, and their prep was immaculate. They did a great job sanding out, ferring out all these little scratches, and I was really impressed with their work. But when they went to go shoot the gel coat on, I noticed almost immediately that there was a bit of an issue. Their color match wasn't quite right. And granted, it's really difficult to match gel coat. But they said that the UV over time, the sun would change the color a little bit, so they were choosing the right color. The opposite happened. As we went through time, those repairs became more and more obvious, more and more apparent, and you probably couldn't see it from the videos, but Clarity, a Leopard 46, had leopard spots. And it really, really bothered us because she's a great boat in great condition, and just this simple little aesthetic thing made the boat look like it had had major damage someplace, and it just hadn't. 2.5 days and a few guys who know what they're doing, problem solved.